Welcome to Mr. News Art Class. It's wonderful to see your smiling faces. In the last lesson, we discussed the difference between geometric shapes and organic shapes. In this video, we are only using one type of shape. We are strictly focusing on just geometric shapes. We're also going to be talking about symmetrical balance. Let's get started. Today we're going to be using geometric shapes and symmetry to create an architectural design, and it's real easy to do. Our three goals for today are, number one, we need to know what architecture is. Number two, we need to see how geometric shapes are used in creating architectural designs. And three, we're going to use symmetry to balance an architectural design. So for starters, here are three perfect examples of architectural designs that use geometric shapes. On the left, you see the White House. That's where the president lives. In the middle, you see the Eiffel Tower, which, fun fact, is a radio tower. And on the right, you see the Taj Mahal, which is a palace in the country of India. Notice that all three of these architectural designs use geometric shapes. They are the shapes that can be created with perfectly straight lines and perfect circles. And I should have mentioned before that ovals count too. Most of these shapes do have names like circle, oval, triangle, square, rectangle, and if we look back again at those three architectural designs, we see that the doorways are mostly rectangles. Some of the doorways have triangles on top of them. We see that the domes on top of the Taj Mahal are pretty much circles. And we see that even though the sides of the Eiffel Tower look like they curve as they go up, they're actually made of triangles. And if you look at all three of these buildings, they are symmetrical, which means that the left side and the right side are the same. Here's what I mean. Take a look at these two trees. Notice how there's a line drawn down the middle of each tree. The tree on the left says symmetric because both sides of the tree are exactly the same. They're just a mirror image of each other. So if I cut that down the middle and flipped one side over, it would match the other side. The tree on the right says asymmetric because asymmetry is the opposite of symmetry. And that's confusing because I could look at these and say the one on the left is a symmetric tree and the one on the right is asymmetric tree. And if you don't put a space between the word a and symmetric, then it means a different thing. So that's a symmetric tree, that's asymmetric tree. It's confusing. So what I like to say, the one on the left is symmetrical. The one on the right is not symmetrical. It's so much less confusing when we say not instead of a. Anyway, that's a long enough rant on my part. What's our assignment today? Today, your job is to create your own architectural design, making sure that you use symmetry and geometric shapes. It's real easy to do. Let's jump right into it. So here I've got my sketchbook out. I'll flip to a clean new page. And I'm going to be using a pencil and some markers for this. You can use whatever supplies you want. I'm going to start with a pencil, and now before I draw anything at all, I need to decide what kind of a building I'm going to make, because if it's a tall skyscraper, I want to turn my paper tall ways, vertical. And if I'm going to make something more like the White House where it's a wide building, then I want to turn my paper horizontal or sideways, right? So I want to turn my paper one way or the other based on what kind of a building I'm going to draw. And you get to decide. You can draw whatever building you want. If you want to copy mine, that's fine. Or if you want to make up your own, that's fine. It's totally up to you. What I'm going to do here, I think, is I'm going to make a building that's mostly wide, but has a couple of tall, towery type elements to it. So I'm going to start with a line across the bottom where the ground is, and a wide rectangle on the ground. And maybe right in the center, there's going to be sort of a taller tower type part to it. That maybe it'll be a clock tower kind of thing. So I'll add an extra rectangle-y bit here in the middle. Now I don't have to measure to make sure both sides are exactly the same, but I want them to be close enough, right? And then up on top of this, I'm going to put a triangle. Something like that. And then I could either leave this section on both sides with a flat roof, or I could make more, kind of like a trapezoidy kind of shape to the roof. Kind of like that. There. Yeah, that looks pretty neat. Now I said I wanted to have a clock tower, so right up here in the middle of this triangle, I'm going to have a circle. If I put something right in the middle like that, like a circle, I could imagine, I don't have to actually draw it, but if I imagine there's a line going down the middle right here, right where my pencil is, you notice that the left side and the right side are the same, right? And maybe it'll help you to kind of lightly draw that line in so that you can see it, to make sure that you do the same thing on both sides. But for most regular shapes, like a triangle or a circle or a rectangle, as long as you put it right in the middle, then it'll be the same on both sides. Now, keeping that in mind, I'm going to have a double door in the middle at the bottom. So I'm going to make kind of a square shape, and this line down the middle is the line between the two doors. It's a double door situation. And they're going to have sort of handles that you open them with instead of doorknobs. And those are going to be the same on both sides. And then maybe I want to have some tall windows. So maybe I'm going to have a tall window on this side. And I want to make that same window over here on this side. And maybe I want to next have a more square-shaped window. Big, tall again, but square-shaped. And then maybe I want another tall window in this little section here, another tall, skinny rectangle window on both sides. Notice that I'm working back and forth and back and forth. Whatever I do on this side, I do the same on this side. Whatever I do on the right, I do the same on the left. Now, right here above my door, maybe there's going to be smaller horizontal windows, like that. And maybe in this section underneath my clock, there will be two square windows, one on each side. Now for my clock, I want to figure out maybe, what time it will say on the clock, right? So like maybe I could pick my favorite time of day, or maybe I could just look at my own clock that I'm, on my wall right now, or my watch on my wrist to see what time it is. And right now it's 12:45-ish. So the hour hand, the shorthand, would be pointing not towards the 12, it would be between the 12 and the 1. The shorthand, the hour hand, would be pointing, closer to the 1, because we're 45 minutes past 12 o'clock, so it's not going to point directly at the 12. And then the minute hand is going to be pointing directly to the side towards where the 9 would be, right? And I could put the numbers in if I wanted to, but I actually really like clocks that don't have the numbers, that just have the hands. They look cool. So that was easy. I've drawn a building, and I used geometric shapes like triangles, circles, squares, rectangles, hexagons, not hexagons, trapezoids though. And I made both sides the same, so it is symmetrical. I could stop right there and call it done because I've made an architectural design that is geometric and symmetric. But I haven't colored it, and I want to make it look fancy and nice. So I'm gonna jump right in with markers here and really finish it out strong. So maybe my building is going to be red brick building, so I'm going to color the building red, but I'm going to leave the windows. I'm not going to color the windows brick red. That would be weird. But I'm going to take my time to color around all the windows. And between all the windows. All right, so that's all the bricks red. I'm thinking brown for the rooftops. And I'm thinking framing some things with the black, right? So there'd be like a frame around each window, a frame around the door, those kind of things. And just to get a nice reflective surface on my windows, I'm going to actually switch to colored pencils. And I don't have a gray colored pencil, so I'm going to use a black. I could, I guess, use a gray crayon since I do have a gray crayon, or I could use a regular pencil, that's gray. But really the idea is instead of pushing down, I'm going to be soft and gentle to make it look kind of gray. And I'm not going to try to color the whole thing all the way. Notice how I'm doing these diagonal slashes of shading. I'm not making lines. I'm using the side of the pencil to shade. And I'm letting it be in sort of a linear fashion, so it's these diagonal lines of shading. And that'll help give it a very reflective, shiny look. And it'll be like glass doors there too, so it's got that same effect there. And why not? Maybe the clock will be a little bit reflective as well. And I guess maybe I'll do green at the bottom for grass. If I had been thinking, I would have left like a pathway leading up to the door. Maybe I'll come back and do that after, and I'll make it brown, which can kind of cover over the green a little. And there we go. We have a beautifully colored architectural design. Notice that these diagonal slashes of shading in the windows help to kind of give it some depth and some airiness to it. And the way that I colored the grass in these horizontal rows kind of makes it look like the grass has recently been mowed. You know how if you look at somebody's yard right after they mow the grass, you can see those lines. Kind of like when you vacuum a carpet, you can see those lines in the carpet. It's the same thing with grass when you mow the grass. Anyway, those horizontal lines really work really well with the rest of the architectural design as well. So that's it. We've made super easy architectural, symmetrical, geometrical designs. That's easier to draw than it is to say. Today we learned how to use geometrical shapes to create buildings, and we learned how to use symmetry to make sure that those pictures were balanced. In the next lesson, we're going to go out into nature and we're going to learn from a famous artist about how to use organic shapes to draw tree branches and things like that. I can't wait to see you then.